Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. It seems to be a tale of two festive seasons. England's chief medical officer wants us to scale back our Christmas plans. But Boris Johnson says he is not cancelling parties or bringing in further restrictions. That's despite a record number of COVID cases and a warning of worse to come. Meantime, there are more calls for more government support for the hospitality industry as bookings are cancelled. We'll speak to the Health Minister, Gillian Keegan, very shortly. Also ahead. Sign here, please, Prime Minister. We'll hear from the men selling the autographs of 55 British Prime Ministers from the last 300 years. And is that the Christmas number one? The cafe owner challenging the pop stars for the crown to raise money for dementia research, chatting to him. It's Thursday, the 16th of December. Curb your enthusiasm. England's chief medical officer urges people to cut back on socialising, but the PM seems less cautious as the threat from Omicron increases.
There's almost no scenario in which the NHS will not be overwhelmed. And given that we know that, it's quite astonishing that we're not taking early action.
Crisis at Christmas. The hospitality industry calls on the government to dish out more financial help as it faces a wave of festive cancellations.
Ramping up the rollout. There's no let-up in the push to get as many people as possible vaccinated with the COVID booster jab. I'll have the latest from here in Blackburn.
Not in touch. New figures reveal hundreds of thousands of people with COVID-19 aren't using NHS track and trace to alert their close contacts. 2 people are still missing after a suspected arson attack at a block of flats in Reading. On the ground, President Biden travels to Kentucky to see the tornado devastation. Good morning, everybody. Should we party on down or should we hunker down? It seems it's up to you in the run-up to December the 25th. Boris Johnson insists Christmas gatherings aren't cancelled and there won't be any more restrictions. But England's chief medical officer wants us to think carefully about who we choose to socialise with. As the Omicron variant spreads with record COVID cases, the hospitality sector says it needs more government cash as cancellations rise. Here's Ivor Bennett.
At the turnstiles last night, it was a case of tickets please and COVID passes. Football fans among those who now have to show proof of double vaccination or a negative test at large events in England. Enthusiasm for the match appeared unaffected, but there was cause for concern when it came to Christmas.
We're just going to lay low in the run-up after this.
Yeah. So no socialising from now until the big day?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
No.
This is the last one.
A lot smaller this year than normal, a lot smaller.
Is that as a result of the recent rise in cases?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
No plans to cancel unless the advice changes.
The advice may not have changed, but the language certainly has. England's chief medical officer saying people should think twice about socialising in light of the highest number of daily COVID cases so far, a record he warned that will continue to be broken.
I'm afraid we have to be realistic that records will be broken a lot over the next few weeks as the rates continue to go up. I do think people should prioritise what matters, and that by definition means deprioritise other things. And I think people are doing that, and I think I would recommend that.
But the comments have been criticised by a hospitality sector that's becoming more restive than festive over concerns customers will stay away.
Many bars and restaurants are struggling to cope as it is, with the surge in cases causing staff shortages. But now they fear they'll also be hit by plummeting consumer confidence. And so the British Chamber of Commerce is calling for new financial support.
There are calls too for new restrictions, amid warnings the rapid expansion of the booster programme is not rapid enough compared to the spread of Omicron.
There's almost no scenario in which the NHS will not be overwhelmed. And given that we know that, it's quite astonishing that we're not taking early action. I mean, certainly boosters are being rolled out at pace, but anyone who's boosted today, it'll take 2 weeks for the booster to fully act. And that's 7 doubling times from a base of 80,000.
For now, though, boosters are still the main defence. Wembley Stadium among a number of new mass vaccination centres, prompting another piece of advice.
If you're going to go to a stadium at the weekend, make it one where you can get your vaccine or help out to give a vaccine rather than, going to watch a match.
The scientists are clear. People now have to decide whether or not to change plans for Christmas. Ivor Bennett, Sky News.
Let's bring in the Health Minister, should we? Gillian Keegan. Ms Keegan, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Chris Whitty saying the overwhelming the NHS is a serious threat. That's his prediction. We always ask ministers about this time. Can you just tell us at this stage how many people are in hospital this morning with Omicron?
There's 774.
In hospital?
Oh, sorry, that's total hospitalisations in the last 7 days. With Omicron, there's 10 cases with Omicron. Maybe going up to 11, actually. That wasn't confirmed yet, but I think it's probably gone up to 11.
How many deaths?
The deaths were 100 and... Oh, I don't have the actual figure.
From Omicron?
Oh,
From
Omicron. Oh, sorry, Kay. No, we don't have. We've had one death with Omicron so far.
And how many of those 10 people with Omicron are on ventilators?
I don't think there's anybody that I'm aware of on a ventilator with Omicron.
OK. Professor Whitty saying people should be
So what you're getting at is the severity of the... You're getting at the severity of the disease, which is one of the unknowns.
There's 10 people in hospital, one of them's died, the other 10 are not on ventilators. Those are facts. Professor Whitty said people should be prioritising those things that really matter to them this Christmas. Don't mix with people you don't have to. The Prime Minister then said, we're not cancelling people's parties or their ability to mix. Only one of them can be correct. Which one is it?
Well, actually, if you listen to what the Prime Minister said in his entirety, he was also urging caution. He was saying take a test before you go out. If you're meeting people, check who it is, how many people you don't know, check the place is well ventilated. Everybody's urging caution. It's highly transmissible, so everybody is urging caution. And, before I go out to any event, I'm definitely going to take a test. In fact, I took one today, hoping to see you in person, Kay. But, that people will be cautious, of course, because we know, most of us will know somebody now who's positive with COVID, and that means if you've tested positive, then you'll be in isolation over Christmas. So that's bound to make people a bit more cautious.
Don't mix with people you don't have to. We're not cancelling people's parties or their ability to mix. Which one is it?
Well, make a sensible choice for yourself. Make a sensible choice. If you're going to go to a party, take a test. If there's lots of people there you don't know, if that's your priority, fine. If your priority is to make it through to Christmas Day with your family, then take a different approach. Everybody's got different pros and cons, so make a sensible decision, but definitely wear a mask and definitely, make sure that you take a test beforehand, and also try to go to well-ventilated places as well. I've got one party which has moved to outside, so hopefully they've got some fire or something outside or some heaters.
Don't forget to take your big coat with you.
Cautious.
Can you rule out...
I will take my big coat and hat, yes.
Even if you're northern, you still need your big coat this weather. Can you rule out more restrictions between now and Christmas Day?
We're not intending to make any more restrictions. Obviously we had the debate this week. It was a very full debate, and obviously we've made we voted on that, and we have introduced those. But of course the Prime Minister said, if we need to act, he won't hesitate to act, and if that means recalling Parliament, then that's what we have to do. All of us are going to continue to work, continue to be available to make sure we get everyone boosted. That's why we're trying to go so fast with the booster programme. As soon as we can get everybody boosted, it takes a couple of weeks for that wall of defence will go back up to where we were. So hopefully, yes, it's hard right now, but hopefully we'll be through the other side of this quite quickly as we boost most of the adult population.
Can you guarantee that everybody who wants the booster vaccine will get one by New Year's Eve?
Yeah, everyone who's eligible, that's the target. I know it's a tough target. It is a very stretching target. It will mean us doing more per day than we've ever done, but that is what we're mobilising for. We've got many more volunteers come forward. We've got many more hubs that we're opening. We're opening for longer hours. You've heard about some stadiums that are going to be open over the weekend. Everybody's rushing forward for it, so thank you so much to the British people, and thanks obviously to everybody involved in the programme. But you know, this is what we're going to do. It's a very, very ambitious target, but we're going to throw everything at it, and we're all going to be, you know, putting our hands to the wheel to make sure we get there.
Are you confident that you will get there?
Yes, I think the one thing I'm confident about, and you know, obviously I'm a health minister now for the last couple of months, is you know they can meet big targets. The infrastructure's there, the logistics are there. Obviously the army's coming in to help. Masses of volunteers are coming in to help. You know, the GPs are obviously at the front line. You know, 24 plus million of us have already been jabbed, including me. I'm 2 weeks today, so I'm hoping my antibodies are quite high.
Yeah, Daily Telegraph reporting today that the public have begun a self-imposed lockdown. Lockdown by stealth is how some are describing it. Businesses are crying out for support. We'll be speaking to Tom Kerridge later. He's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cancellations in his restaurants. What support are you going to offer businesses?
Well, we do still have support in place for businesses. So we've still got VAT reductions, we've still got business rate cuts of 66%, and we've still got recovery loans in place. And as I say, we're hoping this is quite a short period of time so that we can, you know, get everybody boosted and get that wall of defence back up. That's what we're trying to do here. So hopefully, you know, we've got those in place till March or May in some cases. But of course, the Chancellor keeps everything under review.
OK, how concerned are you about more restrictions or even closures needed for schools going into January?
Well, again, we've, you know, that's why we've introduced the second dose of vaccination for 12 to 15-year-olds. So we're hoping all those that haven't been vaccinated with their first dose come forward, and those eligible for their second dose get those over the summer holiday, over the Christmas holiday period. Teachers, get your boosters. That is going to be the best way that we're going to make sure that we can keep everything going, really, whether it's schools or restaurants or hospitality or, you know, many, many things will be requiring people to be there. So they're the best, that's the best approach. Come forward, get your booster or get your jab if you haven't had it. But hopefully that additional dose for 12 to 15-year-olds will make a big difference to their wall of defence.
So you're confident that if the kids have their jabs, the 12 to 15-year-olds, that all schools will open as they should do for the start of the new term?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, we saw how devastating it is on the impact on not only education but mental health and all kinds of things, you know, and when the kids went back to school they were so excited. So no, it's fully the intention to keep schools open, and obviously that's why we've introduced these you know, new precautions and also an extra dose of the vaccine.
OK, and before we let you go, talking to my team this morning and other colleagues and friends, everybody is so weary. They're thinking, not another Christmas like last Christmas. What's your message to a weary nation?
Thank you so much for everything you've done, for coming forward, for getting the booster, for taking precautions, for acting sensibly, for helping your neighbours, for helping your community, for volunteering. Thank you so much.
Have a peaceful Christmas. Thank you for taking the time, and look forward to seeing you in person in the new year. Thank you.
And happy Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. And those Christmas warnings that we're hearing about dominating this morning's front pages, including the Telegraph, which leads with scale back Christmas plans, as Professor Whitty urges the public to prioritise their social interactions. Similar headline on The Times, which also picks up on the Chief Medical Officer's plea to cut back on socialising. Likewise, don't mix with friends unless you have to, is the headline in The Eye. That warning is also echoed in The Guardian, and the Mail has a slightly different take on last night's news conference, saying it's Boris versus the scientists. That's what I was putting to the Health Minister a moment or two ago. And reminder that later this morning, the Chief Medical Officer for England, Professor Chris Whitty, will give evidence to the Health and Social Care Committee on the latest findings about the new Omicron variant. We'll have full coverage on Sky News from 10:30. And if you want to take part, or you want to volunteer to take part in the COVID booster rollout, then scan a QR code. Have we got it? We'll show it to you in just a moment or two. We'll put that QR code on the screen, and if you use that, then it will show you where you can volunteer to take part in the COVID vaccine rollout. I took part in it earlier in the year. Trust me, it's very, very rewarding. So do your bit if you can. Still to come on the programme, Professor Tim Spector, the man behind the Zoe COVID tracker app, gives us his take on Omicron and how it's spreading. Chef and restaurateur Tom Kerridge tells us why he fears the hospitality industry could crumble this winter and why ministers need to act now. And we'll get Labour's take on challenges facing the NHS as Omicron spreads, with the Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting after 8 o'clock. This morning, vaccine centres across the country are again attempting to deliver a record number of booster shots to stop the spread of Omicron. Joining us now is Fraser. He's in Blackburn for us this morning. Hello, Fraser. Not many people there yet, but I'm guessing they're planning for another busy day.
Good morning, Kay. Yes, they are certainly hoping for a busy day, and Boris Johnson will certainly be hoping that centres like this have a busy day. The one here in Blackburn, this pop-up centre at the hospital, can accommodate around 750 people. It's got the facilities to get 750 people through in a day. They're not sure whether they're going to get that many done today. They've got about 50 bookings, they say, but they're also open to walk-ins. Not all of the vaccination centres are open to walk-ins. This one is. So they're hoping that they'll certainly be getting a good few hundred people through the doors today as they try and get on top of this wave of the new Omicron strain of the virus. Professor Whitty was warning us last night that we're facing the virus on two fronts now, that we have the existing Delta virus, which has plateaued and seemingly levelled off in the numbers of new cases. But then, of course, we've got the rising spike in the Omicron variant. 78,000 new cases announced yesterday. The numbers are rising and rising, and Professor Whitty was warning that we are going to see more records being broken in terms of the numbers of people being infected. What we won't want to see, of course, are records being broken in the number of hospitalisations and deaths as a result of this. But as it stands at the moment, the experts seem to think that the Omicron is a less vicious, a less serious strain of the coronavirus itself. But that doesn't mean to say that people don't want to catch it. People are obviously trying to take advice to continue their social distancing and to limit their social activities and so on with the government's advice. But the main advice is to get booked in for that booster jab if you can. It's opened up to 18 to 30-year-olds, so all over 18s can now book their booster jabs. It is busy on the website, and you are warned to try and persevere, that if you can't get a booking through with the waiting system, to persevere, try again later today, maybe even tomorrow.
OK, Fraser, thank you. Thanks a lot. Anecdotally, lots of family and friends have managed to book their appointments over the next couple of days. So keep trying. I also managed to book some lateral flow tests online as well yesterday. So the system is catching up. Don't give up heart, because you want to have that family with your family Christmas with your loved ones. Now, taking a look at the latest daily coronavirus figures for the UK. 78,610 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in the last 24 hours. As we reported earlier, that's a record number for a single day since the start of the pandemic. Another 165 deaths have been reported within 28 days of a positive test. Hearing from the Minister, one of those confirmed to be as a result of Omicron. And that brings the total number of deaths in the UK to 146,791. To the vaccine rollout, 34,000 have received their first dose of the vaccine. Where have you been, guys? And 37,888 have had their second dose. That means the total number of people to have received their second dose is more than 46 million. Let's have a look at the boosters. 656,000 yesterday receiving their booster or third vaccine in the last 24 hours, bringing the total to almost pushing 25 million. Also making the news this morning for you, the search is continuing for two people missing after a suspected arson attack in a block of flats in Reading. One person died, and Thames Valley Police say they do not expect any further survivors. A 31-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of arson and murder. 4 children have died and 5 seriously injured following an accident on a bouncy castle. Emergency services were called after the inflatable lifted into the air at a primary school in the town of Devonport. It's thought high winds raised it 10 metres from the ground. Government inspectors say migrants are being held in very poor conditions after arriving in Kent, despite Home Office assurances. The Inspectorate of Prisons says women who reported being raped by smugglers were not adequately supported, and saying it has a significant safeguarding concern over unaccompanied children. President Biden has visited Kentucky to see the devastation left by the tornado there. It ripped through the town of Mayfield. 88 people killed when more than 30 tornadoes hit last week, leaving thousands homeless and without power. Now, most parents are unaware of the risk of their children being exploited by so-called county lines drug gangs, according to campaigners. The Children's Society is warning dealers will target vulnerable youngsters during the Christmas holiday, as Lisa Dow reports.
All of a sudden, Tina's 14-year-old son just changed.
He would come home, not talk to me, be in his bedroom more. And I would find things in his room, like necklaces with bad boy signs, rings, bandanas. And I thought, what's going on here?
He'd fallen in with an older gang who were involved in robberies and drugs.
They groom young boys because they're vulnerable, by showing off with their cars, their flats, apartments, even girlfriends, girls, showing them, sort of like employing them. You know, one day you can have this if you work for us.
She thinks he's lucky to be alive after they set a dog on him.
Either they were trying to kill him, or I think they were trying to frighten him. He probably just didn't do what they wanted him to do, and they must have said, well, if you don't do this, we'll put a dog onto you.
A charity thinks he was targeted by county lines dealers who get youngsters to ferry drugs from cities to rural areas.
The new study found that 4 out of 5 parents and carers are worried about children being exploited to sell drugs. And the same proportion are concerned that young people are being groomed online by criminals.
It is a growing problem, made worse by the pandemic and the time of year.
We've got some real concerns that at the moment where we might be facing new lockdown restrictions, that children may face school closures. And learning from previous lockdowns, we know that when children are not accessing education, they're often at more risk from perpetrators looking to control and exploit them.
Tina thinks her son has left the gang, but she can't be sure. What she does know is that he is scarred, both physically and mentally. Lisa Dowd, Sky News.
More on that throughout the course of the day here on Sky News. And don't forget, of course, we will also be bringing you Chris Whitty. He's going to be updating us on the Omicron variant at 10:30 live here on Sky News. Now, though, the weather.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Rest of the week will be rather cloudy, but mainly dry. Temperatures returning to near average. Mostly mild and cloudy, with drizzle in the south and a little rain in the northwest. Central parts are clearer with frost and fog in places.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, guess who is back and still wandering wherever they flipping feel like it? Oh yeah, here they are. For the last year, we've been following a herd of elephant who packed up their trunks from a nature reserve and went for a wander. I can tell you that they have now reached Yunnan province. Reports say they have been pinching sugar canes, apparently. Local police say they all suspect one elephant has stolen a traffic cone. Hello, mate. You're having a little wander through. There he is with his, it looks, I mean, I think guilty as charged. Did you see that? There you go, wandering off with his, maybe he thinks he can, maybe he thinks it's a tree branch. I don't know. Is he going to take another one? Nah. Some striking stories in today's papers, and we start with an image of some that you may find distressing. So look away now if you, but you know, this is the way it is. From the Mirror, shows the devastating effect that climate change has had, and also drought, on the people and animals of Kenya. Breaks my heart. 6 giraffe, which are reported to have died after they got stuck in the mud trying to find a reservoir. Now, who does a world-famous sports star call when he's going to receive a knighthood? There he is. Who else but his mum, of course? The Times has this picture of Lewis Hamilton at Windsor Castle receiving the honour from the Prince of Wales yesterday. No doubt, very, very, very proud mum next to him, Carmen. Apparently the English-French rivalry goes very deep. This morning, the Times has these pictures from a recent meeting between the Royal Navy and the French counterpart, as well as military exercises. Apparently there is intense competition between the two nations in chess. And just to show how seriously the crew of HMS Dragon take things, they have a Union flag covering the table as they hosted the match. Not really sure who won that. And before I read the story, I was sure that was Prince William. It's not though, is it? Could it be? I don't think it is. Finally, we all have our favourites when it comes to supermarkets. And Toffee here is no exception. There he goes. He's in the mail. He is, as you can see, a hamster. And he turns his nose up at any cheese unless it's from Waitrose. I love it. Every little helps. Now, I know that's from another one. So we'll have a look at more stories from inside the newspapers for you later on in the programme. We'll also ask Professor Tim Spector, the man behind the Zoe COVID tracker app, for his take on the danger posed by Omicron. Hello again, everybody. Make a sensible choice. That's the message from the government this morning on whether people should socialise before Christmas. England's chief medical officer says we should think carefully about who we choose to meet up with. The health minister, Gillian Keegan, says further restrictions are not needed if people take additional precautions.
Make a sensible choice for yourself. Make a sensible choice. You know, if you're going to go to a party, take a test. If there's lots of people there you don't know, if that's your priority, fine. If your priority is to make it through to Christmas Day with your family, then take a different approach. Everybody's got different pros and cons, you know, so make a sensible decision, but definitely wear a mask and definitely, you know, make sure that you take a test beforehand.
Tamara's standing by for us. Tamara, good morning. I'm a little bit confused about the message still. The politicians are telling us party on, and the scientists are saying hunker down.
Well, I think the message, even from the ministers, has changed subtly in the last couple of days, Kay. Up to now, we've had so many cabinet ministers on the programme saying don't cancel your Christmas plans, go out as normal, everything's going to be fine. And yet, yesterday at that press conference, yes, Boris Johnson did leave it to Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer, to deliver the really gloomy message, which is that cases of Omicron are increasing at a staggering rate, doubling every couple of days, and that therefore it may be worth limiting your social contact in the run-up to Christmas. And we heard pretty much the same message there from the Health Minister, Gillian Keegan. If your priority is to spend Christmas Day with your family, maybe don't go to that party at which there'll be lots of people that you don't know, and one of them may give you COVID and you may end up in isolation. So the government's message now is to be cautious, not just to take a test, which is what they've been telling us thus far, and to wear our masks in all the places you need to wear them, but also perhaps to make a conscious decision not to go to some events because of the high risk of getting COVID. So that is a shift. What Gillian Keegan also alluded to was, of course, the knock-on effect all this caution is having on the hospitality industry, because people are already cancelling bookings, deciding not to go out because of that risk. She said at the moment the government is not offering up any additional financial support. She said there is some still there in terms of tax rate cuts, but the government isn't offering any more, but the Chancellor would keep that under review. And I think we're already seeing the pressure building for that as the hospitality industry say, look, people are already deciding to stay at home because of the very real risk of catching COVID in the run-up to Christmas. And I think that, along with the pressure for more restrictions, is just going to get louder in the coming days.
Sure, and just a quick thought on the fact that good, if confusing news when it comes to the number of Omicron cases in hospital.
Well, she said that there are still 10, potentially 11, which has been the case all of this week. I think the point that Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, was making yesterday is that in terms of the transmission, it really is unprecedented. So we had 78,000 odd cases yesterday. We don't know how many of them are Omicron, but it went up by nearly 20,000 yesterday. If it's doubling every couple of days, we're quite quickly getting into the hundreds of thousands every day. So even if it turns out that it's not quite as severe, which can't be guaranteed, and even if the vaccines, the boosters, are pretty effective against it, if you're looking at that many cases, we are going to see that translate into hospitalisations and deaths in the next few weeks. Chris Whitty said that was pretty much nailed on. The scale of it we don't know, but he was suggesting we need to prepare for the worst.
OK. Tamara, thank you. Tomorrow's take at 9 o'clock, of course. Figures out today suggest hundreds of thousands of people, as we were hearing from Tamara, with COVID-19 aren't using NH Track and Trace to alert their close contacts. Let's get more on this now from our technology journalist, Jeff White. Hello to you, Jeff. Good morning to you. Talk to us about the fact that people are not... Is it because they've not got their Track and Trace on, their app?
Well, it's worth noting, first of all, this is a different app to the one that shows your vaccination status. There are two apps here, and this is the contact tracing app. People have downloaded this app. The idea is if you get a positive PCR test, you can then use the app. You can hit a little button that says, please let my close contacts know that I've tested positive, and they can then take the appropriate action. And obviously, as you'll remember, this resulted in the so-called pingdemic that happened over summer when as many as 100,000 of these alerts were being sent out every day. But it is a key weapon in fighting the spread of coronavirus. So the question is, how many people are still using this contact tracing app to alert their contacts to a positive test? And the figures I've been looking at indicate probably not enough. In England and Wales, for example, only about 50% of people who've downloaded the app are using it to alert their close contacts. And north of the border in Scotland, things are even worse. It's only about 1 in 5, about 20% of people who've downloaded the app are using it to alert their close contacts. And that's really important because, as you'll well know, in Scotland, what they've decided is if you are close to somebody who's tested positive for coronavirus, you yourself must isolate until you've passed a PCR test. Well, the question is, how do you know you've been close to somebody who's got COVID? One of the answers to that, a key answer, is through the app. There are other ways of finding out if you've been close to somebody who's tested positive. So there's the NHS test and trace system, but that's quite labour intensive. The idea of the app, it was less labour intensive, more widespread way of getting the word out. And according to these figures, not enough people are using the app in the way that it was intended. And that's obviously going to have a knock-on effect in terms of isolation. OK,
thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Now, after a record number of daily infections from Omicron, the Chief Medical Officer for England, Professor Chris Whitty, says, sadly, we should expect to see more records being set with the spread of Omicron. Joined now by the scientist who's developed an app to help us learn more about COVID symptoms. That's Professor Tim Spector. Hello to you, Professor. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. What are the symptoms of Omicron?
Well, on the Zoe app, we've been tracking symptoms since the very start of the pandemic last March. And so the only real early warning device that's out there. And millions of people are still reporting every day their symptoms. So what we've been able to do is to see how they've changed over the last month in places like London, where we know that Omicron has now replaced Delta as the main variant that people are getting. And broadly what we're seeing now is the majority of people testing PCR positive actually have cold-like symptoms, and they do not have the classical triad of the old COVID symptoms of fever, loss of smell and taste, and a persistent cough. So it's slowly merged into a more symptomatic, milder condition that looks just like a severe cold to many people. And I think this is what really people need to know about at this time of year is don't wait for a temperature, loss of smell or cough. More than 50% of people in London are presenting and never get those other symptoms, and yet they're testing positive. So it's not looking very different to what we were seeing with Delta, but I don't think most of the public realised that Delta had already changed into a very cold-like disease anyway for vaccinated people, which is mainly what the people we're looking at.
Yeah, that's certainly what my symptoms were when it came to the Delta variant. Do you also track what happens during the life of that COVID infection for somebody?
Yes, we do. So if you go on the app, you'll be asked to log every day and whether you have symptoms or not and what those symptoms are. And this allows us to say how long those symptoms are lasting and whether how they're comparing to Delta or not. Now, we already knew that the Delta symptoms were milder than the previous variants, and it wasn't lasting as long. We know that in vaccinated people, the average duration of symptoms is shorter. We don't yet have accurate data on Omicron because we've only really looked at about 1,000 or so cases. But so far, we're seeing fairly short time spans. We're seeing fairly mild illness. Nearly everyone has got better by about 5 days. But the caveat is, a lot of these people who are getting the infection in London now are on the younger side, and we haven't got a lot of very sick people that may be the ones who end up going to hospital. But generally, for the average person who's been vaccinated or triple vaccinated, yes, we are seeing quite a few infections in those people, but so far the infections are looking mild, but they will include the headache, the fatigue, the sore throat, the runny nose, sneezing, and quite bad fatigue as the top symptoms.
Just before I let you go, papers this morning saying 1 million people isolating by Christmas. Is that your projection? Well,
it could well be, but people might be self-isolating just in case. But I think the lesson is, I think those projections were if people did nothing. And I don't think it's quite as gloomy as some of the predictions are, because people are sensible. When they see these reports, they're not going to want to go to some big party. They're not going to want to mix with people who they don't know if they've got cold symptoms or not. And I think people are going to, and they're already starting to behave like that from our data in London. So I think it's going to be bad, but perhaps not as bad as everyone is projecting. And the other thing I need to point out is that I don't think that test and trace is going to work in this scenario because it only takes about 2 days from meeting someone to getting an infection, and that often isn't enough time to do much about it. You've already spread it really by the time you'd be contacted by test and trace, in my opinion. So I think people need to do their own health check, see if they've got any cold-like symptoms, meeting people, get a lateral flow test just before you meet them, make sure everyone else is doing the same. That's the safest way if you are going to go out at this time of year.
OK, Professor, interesting stuff. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time. Thank you. Now, the Prime Minister warned medical staff and pharmacists might have to work throughout Christmas as part of what he called a great national fight back against Omicron. Let's get more on this from the former head of the Civil Contingencies Secretariat, Mike Granite. Hello to you, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Goodness me, what a challenge there is ahead. We heard from the Minister, everybody who wants one will get a COVID vaccine booster by the 31st of December. How difficult will that be?
Very difficult. It's obviously going to be very difficult. I mean, the fact is we're not very far away from the end of December. We're not very far away from Christmas when people want a bit of a rest. And there are big logistical exercises to carry out to get it done. In my own area, I know that the local Statutory Resilience Forum, the statutory meeting of emergency planners across the county where I am, which is Kent, have already put out a plea for help to help move vaccines to GP surgeries from hospitals, for example. They're looking for more volunteers as well who can come in and stick needles into arms. So it's going to have to be a big effort. But the effort also has to be backed up by somebody giving clear advice. Any clear advice we've seen so far, I think personally, is from Chris Whitty. If you don't have to do something, don't do it, because that will help. And we've seen that the the efforts you've made in your package of the last 2 or 3 people on the screen, how complicated this is and what people need to know. So I don't think they're going to make it. I think they'll try very hard. I think everybody out there will try very hard. And I think the government has been a little remiss in not saying to people, it might not happen, but we're doing our very best to make it happen. And they're not doing a lot to make sure that their messages are consistent, which is a very serious error.
Former head of Civil Contingencies Secretariat back in 2001. Was that the fuel crisis, I'm guessing, when we couldn't get fuel with the petrol
That
stations?
was the fuel crisis, then it was foot and mouth. Foot and mouth came along.
Oh, my goodness.
And
double
those
whammy
two
for
things,
you.
Yeah, those two things basically spurred the setting up of the Civil Contingencies Secretariat as it is today, and then the Civil Contingencies Act of 2004. So those things told us we're in complicated circumstances. You need good coordination. You need very clear, consistent messaging. You need everybody to pull in the same direction. Difficult to pull in the same direction. We don't quite know what the direction is going to be.
It was leading me to my question about how much the public will put up with.
I think the public will put up with anything, frankly, if they're given clear advice and clear reasoning. I think the problem we had with the press conference the Prime Minister gave, the last one, was you had 3 people in front of the cameras who said quite different things. The Prime Minister said we're going to have a huge national effort, we've got to get on with it, we're going to get through this. The Chief Medical Officer was commendably clear. It was dead simple. If you don't need to do something, don't do it. Because it's not going to be very easy to get through the next few weeks. It's going to be a pretty startling, perhaps slightly frightening exercise. And we had the head of primary care for the NHS in England saying we need volunteers. Now, bluntly, that all could have been done by one person in a short, sharp statement that would have got it across. We've just seen how much care you've taken over giving people good advice on what might be happening and what they might do about it. That needs boiling down properly and repeating again and again. Then people will put up with it. They put up with all sorts of things in wartime, in peacetime with the pandemic. What they will not put up with is confusion.
What are you going to do for Christmas?
Well, we have planned to see our family. Everybody's going to get a lateral flow test before they come and see us, because I was isolating for a large part of last year. Everybody's been triple jabbed, but if people don't feel safe, they won't come, and we'll do it this way.
And would you go to a party?
Nope.
That's the end of that then, isn't
Seriously.
it?
I'm seriously.
I can see why.
What's the point?
Yeah, what about
What's the
going to
point?
a restaurant or out for dinner? Would you do that?
If the restaurant was one we knew where the precautions were safe, where the windows were open, where everybody was acting with 2 meters apart, I might consider it.
Why are you so worried about Omicron?
I think it's just the volume of cases. The volume of cases means that the health service can be really put under severe pressure, possibly overwhelmed, because of the number of people who present at hospital, possibly because they have got serious symptoms, and perhaps because they're worried. So if people don't act in a way that keeps them safe and makes them feel safe, and gets them to act in a way that overwhelms the health service, we've got a big problem. The health service is a finite resource. It's been working very hard, and I think there's a great fear that we might crush all those volunteers and all those frontline workers between the aspirations of the government and the fears of people who need good advice and good help.
Okay, we must leave it there. It's good to talk to you. Thank you.
Did you know that if we make small changes to our lives, we can reduce air pollution by loads? But how much? Exactly, loads.
The morning will be mainly dry once rain over northern Scotland clears into Shetland, but it'll be rather grey with further drizzle possible. Northeastern Britain and the south of Ireland have the best chance of sunshine, but early fog will be slow to clear. It'll be mild, especially in the north, although the south will be a bit cooler than today. The afternoon will bring little change, although patchy rain may return to the Hebrides later. Air pollution levels look set to stay low, despite the generally settled conditions.
The Air Quality Report, sponsored by Philips Air Purifiers.
Boris Johnson called for Christmas to go ahead as normal, but hospitality bosses say the industry is struggling under a wave of cancellations. There are calls for extra support during what should be the busiest time of the year for the Michelin-starred chef. Tom Kerridge is with us now. Hi, Tom. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. What did you make of the press conference, the news conference yesterday from the Prime Minister and the Chief Scientific Officer?
Well, I think pretty much like everybody else, confusing and mixed messages, like a real issue. You have Professor Chris Whitty recommending that you prioritise or deprioritise where you go and what you do, and then you have the government who is still talking about going out to hospitality. I think the message from Chris Whitty will be coming across loud and clear to most people. Most people will also want to make sure that they don't want to be self-isolating over Christmas. That people want to be healthy and well. So as an industry, I think pretty much everybody completely understands why people are cancelling and not going out. However, as a government, it really does need to step up and help an industry that has been put under an immense and an incredible amount of pressure over the last couple of years, that now this could be the real thing that tips it over the edge, and many places will close their doors on that run up to Christmas and then not reopen in the new year.
What impact is it having on your business?
Well, to be honest, those bookings are coming in fast and furious. I mean, I posted a thing on social media a couple of days ago where we'd had 654 cancellations, and this is just in one site over the last 6 days. And that was a reflection of the industry as a bigger picture. I mean, for me, I posted it out there, and there will be a lot of people say, yes, you could afford it, you can get well. Yes, probably myself personally, I can. However, the businesses and the industry sector as a wider picture, a much bigger picture, really is going to be struggling with this. Many places take 20 to 25% of their revenue in that run up towards Christmas and New Year, and that's 20 to 25% of their yearly revenue. So without that happening, if that's reduced to 40 or 50% of what it normally would be, it will be catastrophic for the industry. Us personally, those cancellations are coming in thick and fast, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to manoeuvre moving through into the new year, because the confidence for the bookings in the new year are also looking very slow.
So I'm guessing that you are concerned, almost predicting that businesses will be going to the wall as a result of this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is where the government really does need to step up. We need to. The problem that we had throughout the last 18 months to 2 years is the mixed messaging. Is that there is no direct conversation. There is no understanding of whether there is any form of government support coming through to our industry and many others, whether it's airline or travel. But from my point of view, I can only speak from somebody in hospitality, but it always seems that the government are always reactive rather than proactive. It appears that there is conversations happen, things happen, and then they have to react to the consequences afterwards. And yet again, this is another example of mixed messaging and confusion. And then you have to question as to why. You have a point where Chris Whitty is saying one thing, the government don't appear to be backing that up or saying the same thing. And you have to question, is that because there isn't a support package there? Or if there is, it is time that Rishi Sunak, wherever he's gone, to be able to say something to us and let us know what's going on. Or is the government, are they worried about those 100 rebel MPs that were voting against restrictions as is? If even more restrictions are put in place, is it, you have to question, is Boris Johnson playing politics with the hospitality industry and the future of it?
What do you think?
I mean, I think it's probably a mixture of both. I'm not going, where is Rishi Sunak? Where is the conversation? Why aren't we being given support? Let us know if there is support coming in. At least we can start making some form of decisions. If there is no support, you have to let us know. If there is plans to bring furlough schemes back, if there is plans to reduce the VAT back to 5%, great. If there, those bounce back loans that many businesses took last year to be able to survive to get to this point, those repayments have to start being, they're already being repaid. The VAT has increased to 12.5%. Those, utility bills have gone up, wages have gone up. There's a huge amount of costs that are falling into hospitality businesses across the board. And without any support and bookings going down, there is no way that many businesses will be moving forward. So, it is a question of why isn't Rishi Sunak speaking to us? Why aren't we being told? And, I do question, is Boris Johnson playing politics with people's lives? And it's not me personally here. There's 3 million people employed in hospitality that affects, and it's not just that, it's the ripple effect. If we're not ordering 50% of the food, then that has effect on supply chain, and that's massive. That affects agriculture, fishery, farming. It has a huge knock-on effect here.
Where are you on COVID passports?
From my point of view, if it's something that the government wants to bring in, I understand it. If it makes people feel more comfortable going into restaurants and spaces, I understand it. Again, it is a restriction that comes into business, which means numbers will be down. So again, it is a call for support. And at the same point, it's not something that I feel that the hospitality industry it should be policing. Well, we are at a point now where, we've all been in this pandemic for, nearly 2 years. We have to start taking social responsibility for ourselves. Make sure you are double vaccinated and you had your booster jab, or at least got your name on the list to have it done. Take lateral flow tests if you're worried about going out. I think there's a lot of social and personal responsibility that has to fall on individuals, not just, it's not the job of hospitality to check everybody coming in and out of venues.
Talk to me about the work you're doing with Marcus Rashford ahead of Christmas.
Yeah, so we've been working with Marcus since last April on the full-time meals campaign, which has been incredible. It's about trying to encourage the increase in the uptake of the Healthy Start vouchers, which is you qualify for if you're pregnant or if you have a child of 4 and under, and you qualify for free school meals. So what it allows you to do, the Healthy Start voucher is valued at £4.25, and you can purchase fruit, vegetables, pulses, tinned items. So we've been putting together budget-friendly recipes that I've been cooking that's been released on Facebook and Instagram every Sunday, and then Marcus or some of our friends have a go at cooking them as well. And then moving forward from that, Marcus put forward a challenge for Christmas. Could I put together a recipe to feed 6 people for under £10 or around about £10 using Healthy Start vouchers? And yes, we have. We've been able to come up with a turkey dinner which is basically kind of like a turkey roll stuffed with sausage meat and roasted vegetables. And there's even enough left over to do a potato and carrot kind of hash brown with fried eggs for Boxing Day.
Amazing. What are you doing for Christmas?
Well, at the minute, we've got family coming over, and I shall be doing a roast turkey, and we'll be hanging out the same as everybody else, watching a bit of telly and watch kids run around with brightly coloured toys and lots of noise, I expect. Lovely. Hopefully you'll be tuning in to watch us on Christmas morning. Without doubt, Kate. My day doesn't start without Sky News. I'm pleased to hear it. So we'll clip that up for a promo. Thanks a lot, Tom. It's good to talk to you. Much appreciated. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. See you. Now, coming up, we're going to be discussing the challenges facing the NHS in both treating and preventing the spread of Omicron. The Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, will be joining us in just a few moments' time to reflect on what we've been hearing from the Health Minister. She says that she will be partying, but she did confirm that the number of Omicron cases in hospital remains the same as it has been all week. The very latest coming up in just a moment on Sky.